So thank you for coming. But I was thinking this morning that I understand that when we are here and we don't see a lot of people, we know that there's a lot of discarnate spirits here, but I like to see the incarnated ones. So if there's something that I've learned with what we have been through in the past few years, is that I crave for this, for being among people. I really like it when I see people coming and we can talk and we can participate. So thank you for coming here. Um, so today I'm going to talk about the kingdoms of nature from the point of view of the spirit. Before that, I'm going to read a passage from the book Happy Life from Joana de Angelis and psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco. And then I'm going to do the initial prayer. Do not put all your hopes in entertainment, trips, parties, and play. If the opportunity arises to enjoy them, fine, take advantage of it, and you will find that these pleasures pass away, like any other satisfactions, and leave you anxious for the new chances to enjoy them, and so on forever. Some people sacrifice their future, taking out loans and making payments with extortionate interest rates to live these illusions, which come back to haunt them when the debts must be paid. Look for simple, lasting pleasures, those that do not disturb the present or enslave the future. This is very good. I think that I should print this out and put on a wall, frame it. As always, Joana de Angelis, straight to the point. All right, let's have our initial prayer. Dear Lord, our Creator, Jesus, our friend and our guide, mentors of this house, we ask you to shine your light on us. Help us concentrate and use the best we can this period of our week for analyzing, studying, and learning a little bit more about the meaning of our life, our existence, so that we can be strong to face all the obstacles that the week ahead will bring us, necessary obstacles for our learning, our development. For this purpose, help us, dear Master, to maintain our hearts open so that we can absorb as much as possible from your teachings. Thank you. So be it. All right. So before we start talking about before we start talking about the kingdoms of nature, I would like to address question 115 from the Spirit's book, where the Spirits tell us how we are created, in the conditions that we are created in. And these are simple and ignorant. So we are created not very simple. It's we use the word simple, but it's a concept that we still cannot understand. We are created without shape, without knowledge, just a spark of intelligence, a manifestation of God Himself, a manifestation of love. We are not an atom, not a molecule, not a particle, not we are an intelligent principle. So we have the potential to become intelligent beings. But when we are created, we have just that spark, whatever that may be, that in the future we may be able to understand it. But for now, we just need to understand that we are created without knowledge. And that's very important because it indicates no favoritism, no differences. We are all equal. We are all created in the same way. So when we see each other or we see someone that we admire and we want to be, that person is not better than us. We were all created equal. So that person is just in a different situation of learning. And if that person is us, and we say, oh, I'm good at this, or whatever it is, we also need to remember this, that we are not better than anybody else. We are in a different situation. What we have to do is do our duty. So, as it says in the gospel, we see a field in front of us, and we find ourselves with a plow in our hand. So, what is it that God wants me to do? To plow the field. So, we see ourselves with abilities to do a particular activity. We have the body for it, or the mind for it, and we have the opportunity to do it. So, this doesn't mean that we are better or worse than anybody else. That's just the scenario that we need to be in for the necessary learning. So this statement that we are created simple and ignorant, all of us, it means that we all come in the same conditions. There's no better and nobody worse. And when we compare, we can use other people for to incentivize us to inspire us. So that person like achieved that, and what is it that I have to do to achieve that too? So no envy or no comparison. We compare ourselves with other people, and we say, "Oh, that person is it has these attributes, and I know that I have these attributes, and somehow I feel that I'm better than that person of this." We are all created simple and ignorant. And what created us? What is this that we call God? There's no way we can define. So the spirits, when they talk to us or they try to explain, they use words as like infinite. So what is infinite? God has always been there. It was not created, otherwise it wouldn't be God. It would be another creation. We were created. So this is just because we don't understand all the dimensions in space and time that we need to understand in order to grasp and absorb that concept. What we can appreciate is that God, this word that we use to represent this concept, it's a force, an intelligence that make things sprung into existence. So that there's something that pushes things into existence. We call that something God. So that, and we can feel its presence in almost in everything that happens. If I throw a rock to the sky, to throw up a rock, I know it's going to come down. Why is it come down? Well, there's a law we call law of gravity. That is God. It's nature. If the sensation that we have when we touch objects, there are laws in here. There interaction. This is God. Is not. We don't have to the fact that we separate religion and science or religion and whatever else. It's just immaturity of our spirits. It's all the same thing. Everything is God. If there's a boulder, if you drop a boulder in the top of a hill and it starts rolling down, it always goes to the path of least energy. So you can predict, if you have a map of that slope and you see, oh, this point here has the lowest level of energy, then this is the next one, this is the next one. That's exactly the path that the boulder is going to fall. So that is God, or the feeling that we have when we see someone that we love, or the feeling that we are having right now, all here in this environment, trying to understand the meaning of our existence, trying to grasp concepts that go beyond the five senses of our bodies, trying to reach out to God. This is all God. So we cannot understand it, but we can feel its presence and appreciate the proofs of its existence. And one of the proofs that to me is one of the strongest ones, it's the moral code that we all have written in us. And we always had. There was always a code of conduct that every human being knows. We can choose not to follow. We can choose not to follow it, but we cannot choose not to know it. So we all know it. But because of our free will, sometimes we choose not to follow it. And the fact that all societies throughout history, they all had some form of representation of this God. The most primitive ones had a primitive way to understand or to represent God, but God was always there, always there. And those that I believe that they say that they don't believe in God, the God that they are saying that they don't believe, it's a primitive concept that most of us also do not believe. It's just that you have to try to break the barriers of that anthropomorphic concept of God, that it's a man, it's a being, it's somewhere. It's a force, it's an intelligence that causes everything else to happen. So then God creates us. And when we are created, immediately we receive an interface, a material, or a sort of material that communicates between us and matter. We can call sort of a proto-perispirit. It's so simple that it's not even a perispirit yet, but it's something that involves that spark that is us, the intelligent principle, and allows the intelligent principle to act on matter. And at the same time, since we came from God, we never come out of God. So God is always around us and showing us the way. And in the first steps, we call that instinct. So immediately we start acting on matter by instinct. So we don't know what we are doing. We don't think. We just do what we are supposed to do because we are told, so-called, told what to do. And then we start acting on matter, on that we form molecules, we form, so we go in the mineral kingdom, and we form very simple bodies until we see a situation like billions of years ago where our planet is covered with a jelly that is very rich in complex molecules that we call proteins. A protein, it's a molecule. It's a very interesting. It has joints. It's a molecule that moves, and it moves according to an electric field. So it's like batteries. Then you can make that molecule go this way, or go this way, and that's what I'm using right now. That's the molecule that makes our muscles. So then we see this jelly covering the planet, and the spirits call this jelly protoplasm. The scientists they call this by another name. I forgot what is it, like a primordial soup or something. I think this jelly is when the intelligent principles are planted like seeds. And then we see the first kingdoms of nature that regarding life, the first kingdoms that life start climbing appear. And then we have viruses, bacteria, algae, and most of those in the beginning, they're just one cell, no nucleus. So if you guys remember from biology classes, so cell, it has this viscous substance in the middle, and then there's kind of a membrane around it just to separate from the rest. So this is very important. We learn to separate, to create a limit, and then we control what is inside of that membrane. We separate ourselves from the environment, and we control. So that is what we are. So it's our first steps into individuality. We are what's inside of this membrane. What's outside is the exterior. What's the inside is what I control. So we develop organelles and mechanisms to maintain that small little body, to absorb energy from the environment. So we learn that if I need matter, or if I need energy to maintain myself, I kind of involve. So I see a particle or something that it's important for me, that we call that food. So then I involve, so I stretch little arms, and then I involve that thing, and then I digest it. I use acids to digest it and absorb that. Now that's part of me. So I use that to maintain myself. So this is how we start learning how to create and maintain homeostasis, that we all do. So if we put a thermometer in any human being that is healthy, we'll see 36.5 degrees Celsius. So that's because we are maintaining that. We have organs, so we don't have organelles anymore. We have organs now, and they maintain that for us. And then we are in the first kingdom of life, that in the time that the Spirit's book was being written, it was called Vegetabilia, so vegetal kingdom. At that time, there were only two kingdoms for life. A third, if you consider the mineral kingdom, Vegetabilia, Animalia. And then the spirits, they propose a fourth one in 1856, which is the human kingdom. They can see, they teach us that there's a huge difference between animals and humans. For us, we don't do that distinction yet in the material science. But at the time of the Spirit's book, they already told us that it's something completely different. And I'm going to talk more about that. So then we had the Vegetabilia and Animalia. After the Spirit's book was published, science changed a little bit, because then they wanted to include viruses, bacteria, algae in another one. So those are not vegetables as they used to see. So let's separate. We're going to create one kingdom that is Plantae, for plants, and another one that's protist. That is for everything else. So then you have Animalia, Plantae, and Protist. So whatever is not an animal, whatever is not a plant, it's in the protist. And then, of course, our biology start evolving. We start discovering more species. We start learning more about life, and we start seeing the differences between species. And today we have 7 kingdoms. We have bacteria, archaea, protozoa, chromista, plantae, fungi, and animalia. And again, if we see from the point of view of the spirit, we have another one, which is the human kingdom. Of course, I'm not going to describe all of these. This is not biology lecture. So then we're going to separate everything that is not an animal, and human beings. So for us, we continue with the Spirit's book. We have 3 kingdoms. So in the first kingdoms, before the Animalia, we as intelligent principles, we only follow instinct. There is no free will. There is no pain or suffering of any kind, because there's no point. But there are sensations. So we learn how to sense the environment, not just look for food, but we learn to sense, to capture. We start getting more complex. So now we can, instead of being a cell, we can control several cells. So we can make like a big plant, a big tree. And we learn how to absorb energy from the sun, combine with carbon, and store inside of our bodies, so that we have a trunk tree. So it's a storage of carbon. There's a lot of energy stored in that body. So that's why when it's hot, that energy is released, and we have wildfires that is so hard to fight, because it involves beings that they have been storing energy for decades. So that's what we learn in those kingdoms. And we start the first steps into sexual behavior and complex organization. So then you see plants, they're more and more complex. And but we cannot move yet. We still don't know how to move and interact in a more complex way with our environment. But then we evolve a little bit more, and we are no longer simple and ignorant. We have now more complex bodies, so we start experimenting with joints. So then we acquire the ability to move, to walk, to jump. We understand how to maintain a more complex physical body, but that, of course, it demands a more advanced maintenance. So we need our food cannot be just the sun. It has to be more solid. So it has to be in more quantities. And we start interacting with one another. We have offsprings. And instead of having just sensations, we learn feelings. And we start feeling. And at some point, we gain free will. I'm still talking about the animal kingdom, the Animalia. Animals, they have free will. And they have intelligence. What's the difference? Their intelligence is fragmentary. It's not always there. It comes and goes. So they solve problems, and as soon as they solve those problems, they blank out, and then they go back, and then so they cannot accumulate knowledge. They learn, but they accumulate very little, so that they are incapable of changing their environment too much. The impact that they have in the environment is minimal. If they have the same problem every day, they learn how to solve that problem, but they don't improve their solution. So they learn the solution, then they repeat that solution faster and faster and faster, but they don't come up with a better solution. And on another hand, we see that their feelings are very deep. Whoever has pets, you see that you can bond with them in a very deep way. The feelings are not fragmentary. The feelings are there all the time. So animals, they feel like us, but they are not. It's a type of raw feeling because it's unprotected by intelligence. If we are suffering some kind of physical pain, we know. So let's say if I'm being if I'm in a surgery or taking a shot, I know that that's good for me. So I'm not going to fight that. My intelligence is going to give me consolation that what I'm going through, it's necessary for my health. Animals, they don't have that. They cannot protect their pain with intelligence. So they feel whatever they feel, they're going to fight it. If you leave your dogs at home, they're going to get anxious. So they have separation anxiety, because when their intelligence comes about, they know that you're going to come back, but they cannot protect their anxiety with intelligence that will say, hey, he went to work, he needs to work to feed me, to take care of me, so I'm just going to lay down here, soon he's going to be home. They cannot do that. And we do that all the time, but we don't realize we are protected. Our feelings and emotions are protected by our intelligence. You can, by just thinking, you can make yourself feel better. By just thinking, that's what we are here right now. We are just talking, but somehow when we come here, we feel better. So animals cannot do that. So they have this raw way of feeling. And at the same time, since they now have intelligence, limited intelligence and free will, pain and suffering starts. Because pain and suffering is the mechanism, is the divine mechanism to make us evolve, to make us grow. It's like that game, that old game from the 80s, Operation, that you have some energized tweezer, and you try to take bones out of a board, and when you touch the corner, so the nose, the red nose of the patient goes and tells you, hey, you touched, you shouldn't have touched it. So that's pain and suffering. So we have a path that we should go. If we step out of the path, it hurts, we suffer, and then sometimes decades later we come back, and then we see, hey, it's not hurting now, so I should stay here. And then we go to the other side, and then it hurts again, and then we come back. So that's the mechanism, the divine mechanism to show us the right way. So when in the animals, the intelligent, when we are intelligent principles in that level, that's when we start suffering and feeling pain, and then we have diseases, and we have all the interaction, sometimes benefic or sometimes not, with other animals. And the more the animals have contact with us, the more they develop. So it's the bond that we form with animals, it's very important for us and for them, because they will learn with us. They will evolve faster by being in contact with us. And then we, in the Spirit's book, we see from questions 595 from 606, Kardec keeps asking different questions about animals versus humans. And we see Kardec going back and forth if animals will always be animals, if they're beings apart in creation, or if they evolve. So you see that going one way or another, because the spirits, they explain the difference between animals and humans. So say if a human will always be a human and an animal will always be an animal. An animal will always have limited free will and limited intelligence. A human being has culture, accumulate knowledge, and has a deeper free will. They're always going to be different. And then you see that Kardec, then he makes the questions. Okay, but so this means that animals will always be animals. And then this is when the Spirit says, no, of course not. What God, how can we call God just if he would just create a being that is supposed to be primitive forever? Animals, they evolve to be human beings. But if you are describing an animal, you describe with the attributes of an animal, the same thing that you describe a child. If you want, when we have our classes for children here, it's not the same thing as a lecture for grown-ups. It's completely different. A child has a very short attention span. A child is small, and a child will always be smaller than a grown-up, and will always have, or most of the time, a shorter attention span, and will always have a different view of the reality. It doesn't mean that a child will never become a grown-up. So that's the difference, that sometimes it confuses people when they are reading the Spirit's book. But then in the end, question 606, they say very clearly, of course, that the intelligent principle, it undergoes a transformation and becomes a spirit. It becomes us. So this, it's very important, because then we see the animals are not inferior to us. They are in a more primitive state, but they are not inferior. They are not less valuable beings than us. And they need, or we need to respect them and see them as our little brothers. There is even a spiritist book, The Animals, Our Little Brothers. And there's something that is very interesting as well. Since animals, they have a fragmentary mental field, which is between humans and animals, there are three main differences: fragmentary mental field, lack of self-awareness, and lack of intellectual knowledge of God or religion. So the animals, as I said before, they solve a problem, then they forget, and then they solve again, they forget. And they don't know that they are animals. They don't think about the meaning of their lives, or what is the, if they are different than us. It makes no difference. So for them, is we are all the same. And they don't think about God, their creator. They don't think about that. So that's the main thing. And because of that, they cannot undergo a process. So this is very important. A process that we call spiritual histolysis and histogenesis. When we die, when we discarnate, our perispirit, it disconnects from the cytoplasm, so that jelly that is inside of each one of the 300 trillion cells that we have in our body. They are all connected to the perispirit. And the perispirit, it disconnects from that cytoplasm. It's that viscous part inside of the cell. And when they do that, when we disconnect our perispirit from that, we grab whatever is the best of it. So depending on our mental field, we take from the physical body what aligns with our mental field. So if you are a person that is always thinking about drugs, you're going to take the material from your cells that is impregnated with toxins. If you are a person that you have a healthy thinking, you're going to take only the good things. So it's like we are reborn. It's not just disconnecting. We don't just disconnect from the body. There's a process there. So there's a histolysis, it means destruction of tissue, and histogenesis is the opposite, it's construction of tissue. So the tissue of the body, it destroys itself, and the tissues in the perispirit, as a spirit, we have organs, we have lungs, we have matter. So we have a material body. It's just not as material as this one. So we recreate our perispirit on the other side. But we can do that because we have self-awareness. If I know I have an arm, I'm going to make an arm on the other side, exactly the way I look. Animals, they cannot do that. So animals, they cannot spend too long in the errant state, or as animal spirits, animal intelligent principles, because they don't know that they are animals. A dog doesn't know it's a dog. It doesn't know, it doesn't understand, oh, I have 4 legs, I have a tail, I have ears. They cannot do that. So they need the help of the spirits to do that for them. And when that is done, they can remain in the spiritual world if they are under the care of those spirits. As we see in Nosolar, that they use dogs, they use animals, but they are under the care of those spirits. And for animals, they almost immediately reincarnate. So they are disconnected from one body, the perispirit is formed, and then they connect to another body, and so on, so far, so on, until they reach the state that we are now, where we have self-awareness. So we die, our body dies, and we see ourselves on the other side. I still can touch myself. I have the hairs in my arm. I still look the same. So I'm not that, because we know who we are. We have self-awareness. So that is, it's a very important difference between us. And then finally, as intelligent principles, we will reach a point. Let's say we incarnate the last animal body, which we don't have any example here on earth now. And then we discarnate, and we suffer a transformation in the spiritual world. And the next body we incarnate, it's already a human body. So there is a small transformation. Of course, that human body is not the same body that we have now. It's a shorter body, it's heavier body, more heavily muscled. We have bigger teeth, a bigger mouth, a smaller brain. It's not a jump. So it has to be like a Australopithecus, one of those hominids that we study in history. So it's the first time that we're never going to forget. So it's like before we would learn something and we would forget. Now, for the first time, we never forget. We never forget. So then, for the first time, we have culture. We record things. We learn how to break a stone, and then we see that small piece of stone, and oh, I can cut myself. Oh, maybe I can cut stuff with this. Then I never forget that. I teach my offsprings. I teach my family, because when we were in the animal kingdom, we already learned how to form families. So now it's just our bond is stronger. And then I start cutting, and I see that, oh, I hurt my hand every time I cut. Okay, I'm going to put a handle in here. I didn't forget about the rock that cuts meat. Now I'm adding a handle, and I'm not going to forget that handle. Then I'll see, yeah, I'm going to create something else, and then something else, something else, something else. And then we learn to record everything into writing, so that people in the future will see what I wrote, so that they don't start from scratch. Today we go to university. What is it that we do from when we are 6 years old or 7 year old, when we start going to school, until we, let's say, to master's degree? From grade 1 to master's degree, what is it that we learn? Everything that had been done by our ancestors, everything, and 7 different things. So the science, math, language, everything. We learn what we have been doing for 5,000-6,000 years, so that when it's time for us to do it, we know what had been done before. So then we don't start from scratch. That's what education means. When it's our time to do it, okay, then I know that this guy already did that, it didn't work, but then that other guy did it in a different way, that worked. So if I want to make it better, I'm going to go for the second guy, study that process, and then make better, write a thesis, publish it. Okay, now everybody knows, and then it comes the next guy. So that is something that can only happen because of that small transformation that was made, where we are no longer intelligent principles, we are now spirits. And our perispirit is like our hard drive. It records everything that happens to us. Everything is recorded. But we are not allowed access yet. We receive brains that cannot access that information. That port is closed. Why? It's too much. It's too much for us. We have culture, we develop intellectually, but morally, we will not be able to forgive ourselves from what we did in the past. It will be such a traumatic experience to see yourself, because if you access that part of your perispirit from a past life, you're going to, it's you. It's not a movie, it's you. So you're going to be there again, and you're going to feel what you did. And it could be something, it's too much. It would render us with mental health issues, or a certain level, emotive level, that we wouldn't be able to move forward. This is just too traumatic. So then what the spirits, our superior spirits, what they do is that they give us in small dosages according to our maturity. When we start to forgive others, to understand that you're not better than anybody, you make mistakes, then maybe you will be able to forgive yourself from 3 lives ago. And then they give, okay, that's what you did. That's why you see that you keep coming with that problem, your stomach or whatever. That's why. And then they talk to you first, and then you go to a particular place, they let you see, and then it's supervised. Unless it's time, sometimes we are very stubborn, and we keep revenge, which makes no sense. It's something that God already has the right mechanism to make everybody learn through suffering and pain, as we have been talking since the Animalia kingdom. And then but I want to do double. I want to, suffering that comes from God is not enough. I want to put suffering myself. I want to inflict some suffering myself. That's revenge. It's an illusion. And then we keep with that, but that guy did whatever to me. And then 100 years pass, and I'm still with that in my mind. And I come with a mediumship group, and then okay, now it's enough. So you've been stubborn for too long. So that's what you did in the past life. Oh my God, that's me. That cannot be me. That's what you did. So, yeah, okay. So then I see that it makes no sense. I'm no better. I did even worse. So that they start giving us these small pills, and we have the capacity to meditate and to think about what is the meaning of my life, and what is the impact of God in my life. Now we finally have spring, and then we don't just look and see green and blue sky. We feel it. We go there and sit, and there's something else there. We feel that the warmth of the sun, and we see birds, and we see that the green grass and the green of the trees, and there's something else there. It's not just a beam that has stored energy in the form of carbon and uses the sensors to capture sunlight on the leaves. It's not just that. This is more. I belong to that. I'm part of that. It's a different feeling that is hard to put in words. But that's why so many people like to have cottages, to go close to nature, because that in the silence, and we feel our creator, and we see there's something else there. Animals cannot do that. They live in complete balance in their ecosystem, because God is telling them, now it's time to eat, now it's time to sleep, now it's time to take care of your kids. We don't have that anymore. So now we have to figure it out, and then we make a lot of mistakes. And we have these moments where nobody needs to tell us that God exists. Even if we call by another name, or if we just see, oh, look at the beauty of nature, it's all God. So we know that there is this, and we are part of that. And that gives something else that the animals don't have: responsibility. Responsibility. If we want to see, like the material science, us, the humans, as just another type of animal, okay, we are the only ones who have the responsibility to maintain this planet. The others don't, because they don't have this ability to understand that we have. So the responsibility to maintain this planet, the interaction with the other beings of the planet, it's ours. It's our responsibility. We have discovered that we don't need only to feed our bodies, but we need to feed our spirits. We crave that, as Johanna Angelis just said here. You can buy a house, or you can buy a car, and those things are needed. But if that's all you're looking at, if that's your only focus, you're gonna always need a new car, always need a new house, always need new clothes. You're always going to look for a different movie to watch, because that doesn't fill you up. It leaves you empty, because it's not where we came from. We came from love, and we require love. We require human interaction and meditation on the meaning of our existence in this planet, our incarnation. We need more. We need more. And that's why we are here. But because of all that, we have the potential to advance and evolve much faster than any other kingdom of nature, because of all this intelligence, this intellectual power that we have. So we do not advance and evolve at the same pace as viruses, bacteria, animals. We evolve much faster. And when we reach a point where we learn to obey this moral code that we have inside of us, to obey in every single moment, you get completely free of pain and suffering, because every step that you make, it's in the right path. When we learn to do that, then we're going to evolve even more, and perhaps we'll be part of a different kingdom of nature, because we will not maybe we will not have a body like this. Maybe we don't need a body like this. We'll have a different shape because we don't need all this. Who knows? And then we'll keep evolving. And now that we are humans, us here, and we know good, we know God and we know good, we understand charity, we know how to make a big impact in our surroundings. We can build and we can destroy, we can love and we can hate. The difference is that we can choose, and that's why we have the responsibility. But we should never forget who we are and everything that we've been through to be here today. We are creatures that sprang in the very beginning from love. Whatever this field that makes creation happen is. So we came from love, and we are destined to live in love. And we will be forever. Thank you, guys. That's what I wanted to bring to you. Is there any comment or any question about what we just talked about? Anything? No? Nothing? We're all good? All right. So then I'm going to make the final prayer, and we're going to move on to class, and we're going to disconnect from the internet. So you guys that are watching online, have all a good week and a wonderful Sunday.